Begin the current Daf Mesechtes Kidushin Daf Pei. Begin on the bottom line of Daf Ayin Testament Beis, where we continue qualifying the halacha of our previous Mishnah, which was continuing on this theme about yichus and believing the father when he talks about the yichus of his own children, which primarily spoke about the case about when a person goes overseas and then he comes back, and the question is regarding his wife and regarding his children. Mishnah joins today's daf should be a schus v'achini b'nei Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael and throughout the entire world. Some discussing today's daf are, like we said, mishiyotzo hu v'ishtoi l'medina sayam. Someone and his wife, they go overseas, they come back years later. Uvahu v'ishtoi uvanav. So then the question is, what's the status regarding the sons? So the halacha regarding in tzorch lahaviraya lo leishta v'labanim, that there are certain cases that he doesn't have to bring proof regarding the woman because she was already established before they left, and not for the children because, as we'll see, regarding minors that kruch machareha, because they're holding onto her skirt, they're wrapped after her, so we're presuming that these are the children of that woman. The halacha that we go so far to say that we know these are the children of the mother, that malkin soiklin besorfin al chazak, is that, let's say a child is intimate with his mother or a father with his daughter. So there's skila and there's reifa, but how do you know that this is the child of this person, that you're going to kill them and execute them? You weren't there at the birth. How do you know? We presume so far that they're connected and have been living together, that this is the child of this person. However, in Sefer and Truma al-Chazaka is Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, the Gemara, that although there's a Chazaka, but we're not going to necessarily burn Truma also based on the Chazaka. Then we continue to Allah, the next Mishnah, which is the Sugya of Yichud. Lo yisyachid adam im shtei nashim. A person is not allowed to be secluded with two women. Avol isha achas misechedz im shtei nashim. One woman, however, could be secluded with two men, which is the Isra of Yichud of being secluded. However, this halach of isha achas misechedus v'shnei anoshim, that one woman could be secluded with two men, the Gemara qualifies lashon al b'ksherim. That's only by upstanding individuals. Beprutzim, but people that they're breached in regarding to laws of modesty. Afila be'asara namalev, and even 10 men, it's forbidden to be secluded. And also the Gemara qualifies lashon el be'ir. This of two men that it's permitted is only in the city, but derech, when you're on the road, at shiur shleisha, then you have to have 3 men, because what happens is one man might have to relieve himself and he has to go to the side, and then the woman's going to be left with 2 men. Because of that, you can't be with 2 men, you would have to be with 3 men, so that when one goes away, you're left with 2, not when there's 2 and one would go away, then it would be secluded, a 1 man with 1 woman. So we begin the Daf on the bottom of Ayin Testament Beis. We had mentioned in the Mishnah this halacha, Mishiyatzahu be'ishlam din sayam, someone went overseas, so, and then he comes back with his children, and he says, "Isha sayam, oh, this is the woman that I went away with, and these are her sons." So the Mishnah said it doesn't have to be a raya, not on the women, not on the banim. No, not on the women, because the way Rashi explains it was ready miyuchas, and not on the banim because so they were ketanim, were attached to this woman, which is a chazaka that she is their mother, and therefore becheskes imanhein. And however, the Gemara said that maybe raya al gedolim. But the older children, not kuch macharel, they live in their own apartments or whatever. So then he does require proof that she is their mother. Mishnah said another case, let's say that Mesa ve'elu beneho, he testifies that wife that he went overseas with died, and these are her children. So then we said, okay, maybe ra'ay labanim. He requires proof for the children that his wife was their mother, because there's no proof of kuch macharel because she's dead. But in maybe ra'ay la'isha, because it doesn't require proof of his wife, because she was ready miyuchas when he married her before they left. Now, another case the Mishnah said, so he went single, but then he testifies that he married this wife overseas, and these are her children. Then maybe Ra'ala Isha, because she was not Yemen Yuchas, because he married her somewhere overseas. And then, but in Tzach maybe Ra'ala Bana, because they are Kuchim again, but maybe Ra'ala Gedolim. But regarding the adult children, you have to bring you would have to bring a Ra'ya for. Now, the last qualification the Gemara said was that this halacha of Ketam Kuchim Achara, that's a Ra'ya, was only said when there's one. He only had one wife, so then Kucham Achara proves that these are her children. But if he had 2 wives, he would have to bring a raya ala isha vala banim al gedalma al ketanim, because even if the ketam Kucham Achara Hashem benel shechaverta gedaltan, perhaps they're the children of a second of this deceased wife, and they're Kucham Achara because she raised them, so that wouldn't be a raya. Then he would even have to bring a raya on the children, even if they're Kucham Achara. Now this is where the Gemara continues. Amar Shlakish, the last words on the.
First, I just wanted to ask yesterday, what is raya? What is the definition of raya in this?
Aiden B'Shor is a raya.
Use the word raya versus Aiden.
Right. Question is, what does it mean? Proof. Yeah, because we had said regarding different ways of investigating the let's say the four mothers that we've spoken about when it comes to the laws of yichus. It might not necessarily be edim if you bring some type of a documentation, if you bring let's say a shtar yichus or something, or you could show that these people are related. Not necessarily.
You're talking about this particular woman, and what more is there for him to prove?
Well, you could say that. Let's say they went to when they always went places, they were together. In other words, he could bring proofs, not necessarily testimony. Yeah, good question. Exactly what is a raya? But it would seem that as long as you bring a proof, then that would be enough evidence. Yeah, maybe maybe. So that al kapanim, but as long as you bring a raya, so then that would be that would be necessary for this halacha of the yichus of the children. Again, because we're talking about that it's regarding the primarily status of yichus to know who these people are. Now, the Gemara qualifies Amr Shlakish. He says, as a continued top of Peyamad Aleph, says Lo Shanu, we didn't learn that we rely on this halacha of kruchen, and this actually goes a little bit into your question actually right now, that this to rely on that they're connected to the mother, they're so to speak wrapped around her, that we're going to rely on that to tell us that they're the children of this mother. That was said, and this way Rashi explains it, meaning if let's say it's a kohen, that they could eat kachim that are out of the base of Migdash. Once he brings a proof on this woman that she was kosher for kahuna, so then we rely on the children that they're connected to the mother to say that, oh, these are her children, and they're not chalalim. So therefore they could, let's say, eat shum. But if let's say he had daughters, then loy, they cannot get married to kahanim until he brings a raya that they are the daughters of this woman. There would not be enough for the concept of kruchen to allow these daughters to get married to yichus. That's how Rish Lakish holds, that it's enough for kachi hagvul, but it's not enough for marrying for yichus. So Rabbi Yochanan may disagree. He says no. Afila b'yuchasin says even if we rely on the chazaka of kruchen acharel, again that's a chazaka. Chazaka is not a rai, it's not edus, but it's a presumption, and because this is how the things are have always been, and like for example, we'll get in Baba Basa, we presume if someone is wearing something, holding something, it's a chazaka that it's his. Why? How do you know? Maybe he stole it. Maybe, but the chazaka is that it's whatever you're holding is yours. So here also the kruchen is a chazaka. So this chazaka is a machlekes Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish. How much does that teach us? Does that allow? Okay, you could eat a truma, but for let's say yichus, which are more machmer, oftentimes that would not allow you. Or no, Rabbi Yochanan says even for yuchas. Now says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan goes according to his reasoning. In other words, this that he says you can rely on the chazaka, which was already established that they're connected to this woman. We presume that means to say she's the mother. That even for capital punishment, for skila and sreifa, as the Gemara is going to tell us later on, we rely on chazaka for sure for yichus to make valid for marrying for kahuna. For sure, we're going to rely on the chazaka that if a child is following after the mother, it is the child of the mother. So that's Rabbi Yochanan, what's called lishitas l'tamei. Because what do we find? Rabbi Chibar Abba Rabbi Yochanan, he says, the halacha is that malkin al chazakis, that for something that we are presumed something to be, even if there's no witnesses, that we could give lashes, and so to circling the soifin al chazakis. As the Gemara is going to explain, we could even give stoned to death or burned to death for chazakis, but they ain't surfing truma al chazakis. We won't burn truma based on the chazaka. In other words, if something is tamei from a chazaka, but not because there's a proof, that thing that there's a chazaka that's tamei touches truma. For example, let's say a child who we presume that there's a chazaka that the child is tamei. The way Rashi explains it is that he is always looking in the garbage dump where all these dead animals are and all these dead bugs are, and then he touches truma. You're not going to burn the truma. You're going to do what's called tailin, which is you suspend it. You don't burn it, but you don't eat it. And the reason for that is like we say, because Hem and Isa al Cheskes Tahara, we say that the dough retains its chazaka of Tahara, and maybe this child is from the minority of children who didn't play around the garbage dump. So therefore, as the Gemara is going to explain, we're not going to burn the truma for the chazaka, but you see, as the Gemara explains right now, but you do, let's say, malkan al chazakas. What's this that you give malchus for a chazaka? Get Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, let's say huchzik nidu b'shchinei seha. Let's say a woman was established to be a menstruating woman amongst her neighbors. What does that mean? How do they know? Because what it used to be in Talmudic times, that a woman used to wear special big day nida. She would wear her nida garments, and the neighbors saw her today wearing these nida garments. So the woman obviously has a chazaka. Again, there's not a raya, there's no edim, it's a chazaka, we presume. The husband's going to get lashes if he's intimate with his wife for the fact that she's a nida. Moreover, we're going to give skila and sreifa for chazaka. What's that? The Rabbi Barafuna says, Ish v'isha tinik v'tinoikis. If a man, a woman, a boy, and a girl, shegdila b'tech habayis. That this is John Doe and Jane Doe and John Junior Doe and whatever, this little family, the nameless family, that we're presuming that this is his wife and these are his children, but we don't know definitively. There's no testimony. This couple moved into town and with these two children. The halacha is niskal and zalzeh. If the son is intimate with the mother, the son's going to get skila, is going to get stoned to death because of the halacha ba'al imay, and for him with her and her with him. And nisrafin zalzeh. If the father is intimate with his daughter, which the halacha of being intimate with the daughter is sreifa, they're going to get the death penalty of sreifa. So this Rabbi Yochanan l'tamei, that we see that if he holds you could give a death sentence for chazaka, for sure you're going to be malal lo yuchasin based on chazaka. The Gemara brings a story that Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, Amar Rabbi Shimon Lev Mishum bar Kapara. There was a Maisa Be'isha Shabbos L'Yerushalayim, story with a woman that came to Yerushalayim. V'tinik murkab la kasefa, and she was carrying this little child on her shoulders. Big dilasai, and she brought up this child. Where again, presumably this is her child. She sent him to cheder, whatever. And then this child was intimate with this presumably mother. V'vim lebezdin v'saklum, and they brought them to court and they stoned them. Now, lo'imim neshabin avadai, not because this was definitely her son. Because he was wrapped after her and connected to her, and she took him to soccer practice and whatever, all these other things, and therefore we presume a chazaka that it's bana, and therefore, like we see, we're going to give a death sentence based on chazakas. Now, the second half of the halacha says, however, they ain't surfing truma ala chazakas, but we're not going to burn truma based on chazakas. Now, as the Gemara is going to explain, it's a specific type that we're disagreeing about. He says, yes, sarfin al chazakas. We're going to burn truma based on chazaka. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, ain't sarfin, you don't burn. So the Gemara explains v'azot tamayu, that they go according to their reasoning, because they have a machlekes that not. Mishnah says in Masechtas Torah is like this: Tinik shenimtza b'tzad isa. If you find a child on the side of a dough, okay, it's a dough the mommy's making challah for schus for all the soldiers and this and that, and then you have the child's holding dough. I mean, he's on the side of the dough, ubetzek b'yada, and he has dough in his hand. Now, you obviously know that he took dough from the dough. Okay. The halacha is like this. Rameh says that the dough is going to be tahar. Chacham says it's going to be tamei. Why? The norm for children is to play around the garbage dump, where there's the dead bugs and the dead animals, and therefore, okay, the child's obviously tamei. So if he took dough in his hands, it came from the dough, he obviously made the dough tamei. So but we had asked on that Mishnah in Taurus, my time is Rameir. So why does Rameir say that the dough is going to be tar? It seems like a slam dunk that for sure it should be tamei. Oh, says the Gemara, no. Sava Rameir held roiv tinoikis mitapcha. Most children will play around the garbage dump with the dead bugs and decapitate those frogs and whatever. A minority will not. Okay. Moreover, the dough itself has a chazaka. Up until the child came along, we presume that the dough was tahar. Okay. V'samach mi'uta is like a real equation, real, putting together different variables. V'samach mi'uta. So put together the minority of children that don't play in the garbage dump and add it l'chazaka to the presumption of the dough that it's tahar. Isra la ruba. So it chips away, it creates a flaw in the majority of the children that do play around with the dead bugs. Because, and this is very specific as Rashi explains, Meir's opinion is that when you have a majority, the minority is not totally gone. His opinion mentioned in Nida Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph and many times in Shas, is that Chayish Lemiuta, he's concerned for the minority. So it retains its status. So when you find something else to combine the minority with, it's there to combine it. So therefore, although you have a majority, but you have against that majority of that, you should say the dough is tamei. You have a minority of children who don't play around, and the chazaka the dough. So therefore, he says you retain the chazaka over the rive. But with Rabbanan, they tell you no. Mi'uta kamanda lesadami. We view the minority as if it's not here anymore. It's totally nullified to the majority, which the Rabbanan go according to their reasoning that they're not concerned for a miyud. So we don't even view it as it exists. Oh, if you have just a straight up ruba v'chazaka, majority versus a presumed status, well, ruba other, because if something has chazaka, everything has a chazaka until things change. We have majority tells us that this changed. But Remeir says it's not just a rive chazaka, it's a rive and the chazaka with a miyut. Chazaka with a miyut will win out against the majority. So that's really what the machlekes comes down. Do we view the miyut as if it's here or not, and hence their machlekes in this halacha? Okay. That's the Mishnah. Now, what does it have to do with the Machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish? So the Gemara explains like this. On that of Rish Lakish, Mishram Rabbi Ishi says, Zuhi, this chazaka is a type shesor from the last truma that you're going to burn the truma. Now, don't get confused when we say the word chazaka, because we didn't mention it in the context of the word chazaka, meaning this that we're presuming that children are playing in the garbage dump, playing with the dead bugs, that you're going to go ahead and now you're going to burn truma on that. We really mean a majority, because this that the Rabbanan said that the majority of that therefore we are going to burn it. We're going to presume this presumes that it's tamei. They because you go after the majority. They said that means to burn. That's how Rish Lakish qualified the teaching of the Rabbanan. I mean, not like Meir who says we're going to remain it with Tara because we have the miyut assisting the chazaka of Tara. When the Gemara is when Rashi like we're using the word chazaka, he just means because the majority we're presuming the child is tamei. Rabbi Yochanan he says no, it's a chazaka sheseven levet truma. There's not a chazaka that you're going to burn truma. When the Rabbanan said that we're going to say the dough is tamei, that meant what's called litlois. We're going to suspend it. We're going to be chayshish. We're not going to let you eat it, but we're not going to presume that it's tamei, and then we're not going to burn that piece of dough. Okay, so this is latamayu that we mentioned. That are you burning truma al chazakas or not? As we find in how they interpret the Mishnah Masechtas Teiros. Now, then the Gemara says the words of Rabbi Yochanan was in zu chazaka sheseven levet truma. Sounds like that. Oh, this is not a case that you're going to burn. But says the Gemara, so which chazak Rabbi Yochanan would you say sheseven levet truma that he would agree that you would burn truma? That you would say it's such a chazaka, it's so we presume so much that it's going to be clear for us that it's tamei, and then we're going to burn the truma. So it says the Gemara that's kittanam, which is actually a brisa. Brisa says if you have isa b'techa bais, you have a dough in the house, and you have a shrotzim utzvar do'oim. Now Rashi explains that there are certain shrotzim, specifically a tzav, which a toad that's similar to frogs. Now the thing is, they're similar, but the tzav is tamei, and the tzvardeya is tar. They're different types. One is a, let's say, frog and toad, whichever one it is, but they're similar. But one is one of the shmoin the shrotzim, another one is not. Which means when it's dead, is it going to be tamei? Depends which one it is, and they're both hanging around the house. You have both of them metaplim sham, which means to say that they fall apart, they decompose, and you have pieces of these dead bugs in the house. Okay, then to chatichas beisa, and you find pieces of this dead frogs in the dough. and it's not known. Yeah, get an exterminator or something. But it's not known if it's from the shratzim or it's from the tzvardoim. So what do you do? So says the Brisa, Imrav shratzim, if the house is presumed to be more shratzim than the tzvardoim, so then tameya. We're going to say that the dough is going to be tamei, and this is what is the important point. This is the case Rabbi Yochanan is going to agree. We're going to say it's tamei even to burn the dough. Why? Why over here does he agree? Because you have this chazaka of the tzav is a ruba de isa kaman, which is a very important criteria here. Rashi is explaining that it's a majority over here in front of us. We have all these frogs, toads, whatever they are, they're jumping around this house, and a lot of wildlife. And in this house there's a majority. So the chazaka that this dough is tamei is stronger than the regular chazaka, because like Rashi explains, the case of the child, to say that you found this little kid, that's one kid here, and he touched the dough because he's holding a piece of dough in his hand. The kids they're going to get their hands into the dough unless you move it further along the counter. He's holding the dough, and the kid touched the dough. So there's a majority, the lesser common, meaning if you said, do kids play with the dead bugs? Statistics say 75% of children play with dead bugs on a daily basis. That's a rive the lesser. It's not here. It's not. It's in luft, in abstract, in concept, in the world. It's not here. That chazaka is not as strong as the ruba de isa kaman. We have 100 frogs in this house. 75 of the tummy version, 25 of the non-tummy version. That's stronger. That majority is right here. I'm going to find pieces of a frog, little fingers of that frog in the dough. I'm going to presume that it's from the tummy ones, and therefore you're going to burn it. That's the case. Rabbi Yochanan would agree that Imriv Shratzim Tameya, Imriv Tzavadam Taira. If it's most of Tzavadam, then it's going to be Tar. But that's a case where he would agree that you'll be surfing Truma ala Chazakas. Now says the Gemara, Tanika Basei Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Brisa says Rabbi Yochanan that he says when the Rabbanan say in that Mishnah Tyrus that they discussed that it's going to be mitamin regarding the case of the child who took a piece of the dough from the mommy making the challah, and we don't know if he was playing in the garbage dump with all the different dead bugs. That when the Rabbanan say it's going to be tamei, meant litlois, to suspend but not to burn, because Rabbi Yochanan holds ain't serving ala trumas ala chazaka. Where do we find the Bryce like him? So it's actually a cheshbon. The Bryce quotes like this: Shnei dvarim im behem das lishal. There are two things that they don't have intelligence to be inquired if this became tamei. But vasam chachamim, but the sages made it kamosh yesh behem das lishal, as if they do have intelligence to be asked. Meaning, what's important is, like Rashi brings, the Gemara needed of Dalam Beis tells us that b'rshus hayachid we know a suffix is going to be tamei. Now, by something that does not have intelligence to be asked, we hold in general, like the Gemara says in Nid over there, that even b'rshus hayachid the suffix is going to be tahar. This that we said that suffix tamei b'rshus hayachid, which we say throughout Shas, suffix tamei b'rshus ram is going to be tahar. That was said specifically by something, because we learned it out from the halachas of Saita, which the woman has intelligence to be asked about what she did, which is the halach of Tumah, a different type of Tumah, but that's where we learned it out from. So it has to have dabashish b'das lishal. But if, let's say, the thing that has the suffix in Rishus HaYachid does not have, does not have intelligence to be asked, we would say actually it's going to be tahar. But that's what this Bryce is coming to tell us. There are two things that, although it does not have das lishal, so really the suffix tumah should be tahar. Chachamim made it as if it does have das lishal, and we're going to presume the suffix that it's tamei. What are those two things? Tinik, the case of the child, voidaches, and one other one. So the Gemara explains tinik, the case of the child, is adamar. Which one? The one we just mentioned, Masechtas Taurus, which is that you find the child on the side of the dough. He has a piece of dough in his hand. Where, although the child, the suffix regarding a child, and a child you can't ask is a 3-year-old. You don't know what he's talking about. And really, the suffix tumah b'shus hayachid should be tahar. No, here they made it like as if definitely, which we'll see in a second as part of the interpretation, that as if there is das lishal, as if it's a 15-year-old, and therefore since it's in Rosh Hashanah the suffix, we're going to say that it's tummy. Right. It sounds like that the way like Rashi's words, like we know. Right. The question is, does he mean that we presume that? But it sounds like either way that's not like a suffix. It sounds like that we for sure know that that would seem to be indicative. So that's one case. But the other case, Mahi, what's that? So that's the following case. Isa b'techa bayis. Let's say you have a dough in the house. V'tarna goylim u'mashkim tmeim sham. So you always want to know the setting, forensics, they come, right? So there's the dough, then there's the rooster, and then there's some beverages over there. Okay. But then when they find there's a continuum bays, nikurim be'isa. We find, the forensics, they come there and they're taking samples of everything. They see that there's pecks from the rooster in the dough. Okay, now what's the halacha? So Thailand, we suspend if this dough, meaning is truma, we're concerned that maybe, listen to the they have to ballistics and everything. They have to figure out everything. Maybe the chicken drank from the tummy liquids, and while the tummy liquids were still dripping in their beak, maybe then they pecked on the dough. Right? This is how detectives all like watching these shows, right? This is how they figure this out. They have to figure out and analyze it. Maybe he was drinking from the liquid, and then as he's pecking, we see pecking holes. So when he pecked, maybe there was some other tummy liquids. So you can't eat the dough, the truma, but you don't burn it because we don't know exactly what happened. But there's definitely room for suspicion. Okay, so how does this support Rabbi Yechanan? So Rashi explains. From the fact that the Bryce is saying that these two things we made, even though there's no das l'shal, one is regarding a baby and one's regarding a rooster. But we said that we made it like as if there is das l'shal, and that we're saying that they're both going to be tummy, even though really a sabek tam b'shus yachid should be tar when there's no das l'shal. But we're comparing the two of them. Now, since by one of them you told me clearly with the case of the rooster that the loch is Thailand, so the inference is that the other one, the case of the child, is also going to be Thailand, which is like a birchen and not like Rish Lakish. That you're not going to burn it. According to Rish Lakish, the case of the child, so it's a raya. That's what we're saying. It's a raya to Rabbi Yechanan, because we're comparing these two cases. In the case of the rooster, you tell me explicitly that halacha is Thailand. So the mashmayis would be that the case of the tinnik would also be Thailand, which is like Rabbi Yechanan, that ain't surfing. I mean, but not like Rish Lakish, who said surfing. Now the Gemara explains, however, regarding this last halacha, once we brought it in. No, it's just that the Brisa compares it to them. The Brisa says that Shnei Devarim Imrim Das Lishal, but they made him like there is Tinnik Vaydacheres. So then we have to do research and say, okay, where's this? What's these two cases? Tinnik is over them Seftaris, and the Vaydacheres is a different Brisa. But that Brisa is putting them together and saying, oh, these two, we're going to make them like Kamishes of Das Lishal. So it sounds like a Rechanan that they both have the same halacha, which even though there's no Das Lishal, we made it as if. But what did you make it? Oh, you made it Thailand by rooster, so it sounds like you made it Thailand by the case of the child too. Now, again, once we brought in the case of the rooster, so the Gemara qualifies the teaching. Rabbi Shloimy Levi says, Loisha, we'll learn this case of the forensics of this rooster, El B'mashkin Levanim, only by white liquids. So there was a can of Sprite, or whatever it is, that was there with the tummy Sprite, with the dough that was over there. Of Mashkin Adumim, but let's say there was some red wine over there. Now, Im Isa Danaker, and this is where you got to be real forensics, you got to be really, a lot of experience over here. If the chicken had pecked, made the idea, you would know. Why? Because you would see it as red. So it must be that then we wouldn't be chayshish. It's only by clear liquids. So the Gemara says, why? Maybe the dough absorbed. This is the real forensics. Like, you got to understand the science behind how things work. doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't. Maybe it was colored, but maybe it got absorbed into the dough. So the Gemara says, it says, Davazeh Shama Beribi. He says, this thing, the Gadol Adar, B'Shimon Levi, heard Uperusha Leishama, and he didn't hear its interpretation, meaning that even by red, he should have explained and differentiated, because it depends. We only said by clear liquids, which are easily absorbed, that the image of the reflection of a child is nikraba. So even if it's clear, then you could see the reflection inside of that. That's where you would say that maybe it got absorbed. But if it's murky a beverage, then we know for sure, because then it wouldn't get absorbed in. You would see the remnants of it, and then you're right. Then we would say the dough is not going to be tummy. So it sounds like that even if it's a reddish, if it's a clear, translucent, then it could get absorbed into the dough. But if it's some type of like a kurin, some type of a murky, some type of a thick consistency, whatever, that's something that you're right. If the chicken had pecked at it, meaning it drank it and then pecked at it, then you would see remnants of it, and then we don't have to be chayshish in that case. Now we continue with the halacha, the next Mishnah, which begins the sugya of yichud, which is a similar relationship to the previous Mishnah of concerned regarding the relationship to women. What does this man have with this woman? Is it his wife? So here we segue into the halachas of being secluded with a woman. Says the Mishnah, Lo yisachir adam im shtei nashim. A single man, meaning one individual man, not single in that way, a man should not be secluded im shtei nashim with two women. Now, why two? What's the problem with two women? I can understand one woman because he might have a forbidden relationship, but why two? So Rashi tells us the famous words, because dait and kala, because they're however you translate das, but their understanding is light, and both women would be easily seduced, and one would not be afraid of the other one because she's also doing the same thing. So because of that, even though it's two women, we're concerned for something inappropriate. Now, aval isha achas misyachedes im shtei anashim, but one woman could be secluded with two men because one man is embarrassed of the other man. So it's just interesting psychologically what is being explained over here, the characteristics of as we know, differences in male and female gender, but therefore that's the difference between why one man cannot be secluded with two women, but one woman could be secluded with two men. Now, Shimon, he says, no, af ish echad misyachir im shtei nashim, even one man can be secluded with two women if bizman she'ishtay imay. As we know, the well-known heter of ishtay imay, if his wife is with him, and then b'yashni imayim b'pundiki, he could even sleep with them in the same hotel room, because his wife protects him. No, it seemingly would be even no matter what amount. But even if there's, you want to know if it's one, what would be the halacha he's saying with right for ishtay misham rasa, right? I mean, what would it be if right? So the Goyis Agros says on this, he says that it's just the Tanakama said Beis Nashim, so Rabbi Shimon Osa says that, but not necessarily that's indicative of his specific opinion. Now Taisa actually also gets involved in like this interesting diuk, like similar to the diuk you want to make with two Nashim. He says that it sounds like according to Rabbanan, that's what it sounds like. Rabbi Shimon's coming to disagree with Tanakama. Sounds like according to Rabbanan, even if his wife is with him, it's forbidden of him to seclude with two women, and even according to Rabbi Shimon, it sounds like that what you were saying, that even with two women and his wife is with him, then it's permitted. But one woman and his wife is with him, it sounds like it would be forbidden. That's what the Goyis is going on that shtickle. Right. So that's Taisa's kasha. Maisa Taisa says he has a kasha, and he says that no, it's not true. According to Rabbi Shimon, it's only it's not usher only when your wife is not with you. and therefore he says the Girsa is Reb Shimon says that even one man can be secluded with two women, and when his wife is with him, then he could even sleep with them in the same hotel room because his wife protects him, and that would be even according to Rabbanan, and even with one woman. So according to Taisus, there's no disagreement, and it's not dafka with two. It's a man can be even with one other woman, according to everyone, as long as his wife is with him. So that's the discussion over here regarding the Girsa and regarding Taisus and the guys that grew over here. Now, Mishnah continues and says, Misyached Adam im imoy v'imbita. A person could be secluded, or he could be alone with his mother, with his daughter. As Gemara explained, the reason why you shouldn't be allowed to be secluded, because a mother or a daughter is an erva, so you shouldn't be able to be alone with a mother or a daughter. And moreover, v'yashni moyim. The son could sleep with his mother, which we're talking about a young child who could sleep with the mother, b'kiruv basar, skin to skin, as we're going to explain. But v'migdilu, but if they get older, then zu yeshena b'ksusa, then the mother should be sleeping in her garment, v'zeh yashin b'ksusai, and the son should be sleeping in his garment, and so too a daughter with her father, when she's a young girl, versus when she gets older, then they should be sleeping with their own garments. Okay, so the Gemara starts exploring the halacha of Mishnah. My time, what's the reason why you're telling me that a man cannot be secluded with two women, whereas when a one woman, you said, could be secluded with two men? So what's the difference for this? The Tan Beliyahu is torn Yeshiva Beliyahu, Ha'il v'noshim daitin kalas alein. Because since the women, their thought process is more flighty or something, if you would say it like that way. So both would be reasonable to be seduced, and therefore you cannot be secluded even with two women. Okay, says Imam Anamila, where do we know this from? So Rabbi Shloimy says, Remez, and there's a famous question, why Remez? Remez liyichud min haTorah minayin. An allusion for yichud from the Torah, where do we know it from? Shlomo says a pasuk in Devarim, because the whole Shaila is the Reis or whatever, the Rabban. It says a pasuk in Devarim, Ki yisischa achicha, if your brother is going to seduce you. Who is Ben Amicha, Ben Imecha, the son of your mother, meaning your maternal brother, and he's going to try to tell you, let's go do Avodah Zarah, Nilcha ben Avdil, Hemacherim, Ashli Data. So it's talking about a very different context over this. It's talking about the idea of someone trying to get you to go join this cult or whatever, do some Avodah Zarah. Now the question is, why does the pasuk say Ben Imecha? Chi Ben A Mesis? What, do you think only your maternal brother that you share the same mother, he'll seduce you? Ben Av Ein Mesis, but the son of your father, meaning your paternal brother, doesn't seduce? So Ella rather says the Gemara, you know why it says Ben Imecha? It really wants to tell you something parenthetically, that the son is found by the mother, because Ben Misyachidim Imai, because a son could be secluded as a mother, and therefore it makes sense you'll find your maternal brother, that he'll be Ben Imecha, you'll find him there. But it teaches us, but that only with the mother he'll be hanging around being secluded. But all other forbidden relationships are forbidden to be secluded. That's the hint for yichud from the Torah. It says the Gemara, Pashta Dekra, but the simple understanding of the pasuk, b'mai ksiv, what's it talking about? In other words, when you're translating the simple understanding of the pasuk and teaching it to kindlech and cheder, that's talking about by seducing another person to avodah zarah. Why would it talk about ben imecha? Why would it say your maternal brother and not your paternal brother? So Abai says, it's teaching you a chiddush that you don't have to say. Meaning, I don't have to tell you regarding your paternal brother. The son he hates his paternal brother. Why? Because guess what? He takes away of the portion of the Yerusha from the inheritance. And therefore your paternal brother is giving you bad counsel because he wants you to go down the wrong path and then says, oh, look at the shegets over here and he doesn't deserve anything in the Yerusha. So, of course, then you're not going to listen to him. And that's what the Torah is saying, not to listen to him. But even your maternal brother, the Lois Tandale, where he doesn't hate him because they don't have, they don't share Yerusha together. This guy inherits his father, he inherits his father. So I would say maybe to listen to him. Never get to tell me, no, even Ben Imecha, don't listen to him. But says the Gemara, name masnin like Habashal. Let's say our Mishnah that said that a man cannot be secluded with two women is not like Abishal, which we see clearly he holds that a man could be secluded with two women. The time like in the Brisa. Kol shleishim yoim. If a child dies within 30 days, so you don't have to honor him when he dies to take him out for a burial, not in a coffin, not in other types of instruments. Rather, you just take him out hold him in the chest. And you bury him with one woman and two men. And you don't need that the community should escort the baby. You just need three people. But let it be one woman and two men. But not the other way around. Not one man and two women because of the problem about yichud, because the cemeteries were not close to the city. And they're going to be secluded alone somewhere out there in the isolated area, which we know the halacha of yichud is not just in a room. It could be on some deserted road, anywhere where you're going to be isolated. So make sure it's not going to be one man and two women.
Question about because why one woman puts the Torah with a woman and two men? Why?
Right, meaning just say three men or something.
Why one? Why two? Why three?
No, it's three. Right. Oh, why the number three?
Not equal.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like that you want to have some type of representation, but you don't need to have a minyan or a communal thing. Yeah. What's the magic number three? It's a good question. Maybe it's related to the burial itself. Yeah. So Abba Sholem, he says, no. Even one man and two women. One man, two women. The cemetery was all the way out, and they're going to be secluded. I thought one man cannot be secluded with two women. He might do whatever it is with them out there. Obviously, our mission is not like Abba Shol. So he's going to know. Tim Abba Shol. You can even say our mission is like Abba Shol. The Shas Aninas at a time of mourning, Taver Yitzre, it breaks the inclination, which means he agrees that a man should not be secluded with two women. But by Levaya, a Nebuch, a baby, a 15-day-old baby that they're going to bury, there's no reason for us to be concerned over there. But Rabbanan disagree over there. Rabbanan in that Brisa say that even then, because the whole like Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak, he says, based on the pasuk in Eicha, pasuk says, "Ma yisoinen adam chai." What could a living person lament? Gever al chatav, a man on his sins. So the way it's being translated over here is, what does it help mourning for a person to rely on that to be careful from his inclination? Meaning, even a person is in mourning, Yitzrei misgaberlov, his inclination overpowers him, that's what the pasuk is saying. Mayis oinen adam chai. What is aninus? What does mourning have to do with a living person? Because as long as he's alive, the next part of the pasuk says, Gever al chatav. He has to be a warrior on his sins, because if not, guess what? At the Levaya, he's checking out someone at the Levaya. That you have to have, that his inclination is going to be overpowering, causing him to sin. So therefore they hold, no, I don't care. They could be taking out to bury a 15-day-old baby, and still a man should not be secluded with two women. So therefore that's their machlekes in the Brisa. Abba Shol, he says, no, you're translating the pasuk in Eicha very differently, and therefore you're coming up with your conclusion. Kiksiv ahu, that pasuk is a very different interpretation. It's actually talking about b'misraim al midosav ksiv. It's someone who's complaining regarding the measurements that God has caused for him in his life. He's complaining, why is my life the way it is? This is what the pasuk is saying. Ma yisraim al midosav. What is a person complaining regarding what the measurements he got in this world? Like Rashi explains, the translation of Ma Yis'oiden Adam Chai is really like, instead of Ma, it's like Lama. Is that why? What is a living person complaining about? Why would he complaining about what happens to him after all the kindness God says that I do with him, that I gave him life and I didn't kill him? Ma Yis'oiden Adam Chai, you're alive? What do you have to complain about? You think he's a warrior on his sins, that he didn't sin to me, and like as if in his righteousness he's living? It's enough that I give him life. And in today's times, it's something we should appreciate, that like what we complain about, who are you to complain? What did you do that you deserve your eyesight and your hearing and your ability to walk and all these different things? So he says, no, you don't translate the pasuk the way you're reading it, that even in the time of Aninus, a person can have a Yitzhahara. No, they're translating the pasuk differently. It's like I was complaining. Say, why do I have this in my life? And you understand, and therefore I was victimized. And what are you complaining about? Who gave you all these things to say you're alive? This should be enough. Now, Rabbanan, however, they'll say, okay, fine. We understand, Abishal, what you're trying to say. That even though, if you're going to say, like you want to say, that at the time of Aninus, a person's Yitzhahara is a little bit broken, so you're saying that you're not concerned. Let one man go out with two women to bury the baby, but we don't, no, we hold, even if you're correct, that a person at a Levaya would not be, so, his Yitzhar is so flaming, you still have to be concerned that sometimes there's not really any mourning going on over there. And then making themselves as if they're carrying out a dead baby, and we know the Palestinians do this very well, and they're going out to sin. Kehu Maisa the Hi'itza. There was a story with that woman, the Hava Uvda. There was such a story of Afikse. What they did was they took out a living baby under the guise that he was dead to do a sin with the woman that they were going with to quote unquote bury the baby with. They needed cover. You need an alibi. You need some cover because what are you going out? So is that we're going to bury the baby? So the reason why we don't let one man go out with two women is you're right. If it was a real Levi, we wouldn't be concerned. But it might just be a cover for something. Therefore, we don't let it. Now Rashi brings a different version of the Gemara from his Rebbe, which not Goyr is V'Rabbanan. It's all Abishal talking, and Tais actually adds in a little some of the words of that's missing from here, but they were saying, Abishal said, what do you mean? The pasuk is saying, isn't it enough that I give him life? Kahi Itza is actually referring to Gemara Moed Katan of Chavzayim Beis. What happened over here with this story, Tais adds in a little bit to this at the bottom of Tais. There's a story with one woman that had 7 children, and one of them died. And she was crying, and she was crying and crying. They told her, don't cry. And if not, you're going to have another son who's going to die. She didn't stop, and she kept on crying and crying, and another son died, and another son died, another son died. So they all died. And then, because she was complaining so much, she also died. So, according to that Girsa, you don't have the words have over the say, because it's not referring to this taking out to be Mizana, but it's going on that woman that cried, don't complain about what you have. Be grateful for what you have, because if you're living, then you can't complain because you think you're a Geva Chatab, you think you're a grace tzaddik, that you deserve and you deserve and you deserve. Not necessarily. Now, Tais actually brings from Rabbeinu Chananel a story with a woman that was crying, and you just see how what could happen, the depravity of a human being, that this could happen, and we see it in our lifetime, that she was crying and mourning by her husband's grave, okay, and there was a person over there that was guarding someone who was hanging. The king commanded this guy to guard this guy who's hanging. Now, this guy, the guard, came to the woman, seduced her, she listened to him, and they were intimate. When he comes back to the hanging person, he didn't find him anymore. Now, he was very much in pain. He was afraid of the king. The king's going to have his head that he didn't guard, probably some political prisoner or something like that, and they wanted to take his body, whatever it is. And now he's like, the guy's not there anymore. So the woman told him, don't worry, take my husband from his grave and hang him in the place of the guy who was supposed to be hanging. And they took out her husband and hung him on the noose. So says Rabbeinu Chananel, you see that even b'shas aninus, the woman's mourning over her late husband, her inclination overpowered her. So again, don't be so confident in the human personality to think that, oh, come on, never in such a situation would never happen. No, there are these stories, and therefore the Rabbanan says, yes, you can't have yichud even by lavaya, by taking out a baby to be buried, or whatever, all these things. You cannot have one man and two women. Like we all know the famous stories where all the good tzaddikim says, I'm blind in one eye, and I can barely see, and I wouldn't go to such a chasna where this priest is over there, and you're telling me you're a hot-blooded bacha, and you can go and it wouldn't affect you. Don't be so confident that your grace and tzaddik, you can do these things. We see what the Gemara is teaching us. Now, the Mishnah said, Aval isha achas, but one woman could be secluded with two men. Now, a very important qualification the Gemara says. Amr Rabbi Yehuda Merav says, Loishan, we didn't learn that a woman could be secluded with two men because what, like Rashi had said, a man is embarrassed from his other friend. Like you're gonna, it's very interesting psychologically to understand. But he's like, okay, I'm saying you're gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. What does that mean? Now that's elabik share. That was only taught by upstanding individuals. Two kosher, one guy by himself, he might lose his morals with a woman, but with another person, they'd be embarrassed. They wouldn't do it. But people that are breached in the areas of morality, then the woman cannot be secluded, even with 10 men. And the Gemara says, it was a story. 10 men took out a woman under the guise that she was dead. We're going to bury 10 men. And they were mezana with her, and she was a married woman. So you see that you could have a group of men, but if they're inappropriate people, it doesn't help. To the contrary, if anything, you have the herd mentality, you have all the other group dynamics that actually work in the other direction. Amar Visa says, Tate, so you should know this concept is true, because the Mechabri Be'asara, you have 10 people get together, V'gam V'kashuda, and they steal beams. In other words, how do things that require 10 people to carry it get stolen? Obviously, there was a group effort that was doing, and they did not embarrass from each other. So the same thing could be with being mezana with a woman. So this a heter of isha achas b'shtei anoshim would only be with ksheim, upstanding individuals, not with people that are prutzim. Let's support this teaching from a Mishnah Masechet Saita, because the Mishnah says the courts would give over. So someone who warned his wife, and then meaning with kinui, and then she was secluded with that individual, which Allah is that he has to take her up now to the base of Mikdash and give it to drink from the Mesaita. So the courts, in the local courts, give him, from this history that he is, Shnei Timid HaChachamim, 2 Talmud scholars to go along with him, because Shema Yover Le'abaderech, because maybe the husband might be intimate with his wife on the journey. It's obviously a very enticing woman. She's with other men, and maybe the husband might feel on the way, they might be in some hotel. No, because he's forbidden to her. As the Mishnah teaches in Masechet Saita of Chav Zayin Mebei, it says nitma 2 times. One is teaching that she's forbidden to the Baal, her husband, and one that she's forbidden to the Baal, to the man that she was suspected with. Now the problem is, if he's going to have be with her, the waters are not going to check her anymore, because the pasuk says in Mamid Berhei Nikah Ish Ma'aven that the man is now cleansed from sin, which teaches only when the man is cleansed from sin, then the water is going to check out his wife. If he's not cleansed from sin because he was with the wife that he's forbidden to, then the water's not going to check his wife. Comes out, God's name is going to be erased for nothing. So we have to send 2 Talmid Chacham to make sure that he's not intimate with his wife on the way up. But one thing you see is that Talmid Chacham who he's sending along are upstanding individuals, Talmudic scholars. Intri de Amaloi, but 2 random guys who have nothing better to do are hanging around, says, you guys in the best, we don't need you anyway, get out. Go accompany this guy up to Yerushalayim. We wouldn't do that. Why not? Because they're not upstanding, and upstanding, even 5 men would not be able to be secluded with this woman. So therefore, obviously, that's the reason why we're sending Talmid Chachamim. No, that's not the reason, because Shani Talmid Chacham, Talmudic scholars are different, because the Yadi has a contained of a Pei Aleph and Aleph, La Astrui Bey. They know how to warn him. That's for a very different reason. Meaning, they tell him, if you're going to be with her, the water's not going to check her out.
So she's going with 2, not 1.
What?
She's going with 2 Talmudics. 1 or 2?
No, 2. 2, right. So because they could warn her, right, we wouldn't want to have 1, because then you would have the problem about Yichud, because he's really forbidden to. What?
What's the reason?
No, it's not. It's not so much for Asra. It's just because you have to let him know the halacha. I mean, if they weren't him in the Chachamim, he would say, "Where do you guys know? You learn the Kitzur Shulchan. How do you know this? Whatever." The Chacham says, "Azor is the halacha," and he would listen to them. That's what. No, the Gemara is just rejecting the raya. The Gemara is not saying the halacha is not true. It's just saying the raya is not true. Maybe Talmid Chacham is not, because maybe Prutzim also would be permitted 2 men with 1 woman. But the reason why we send Talmid Chacham is partially because to warn, they know the halacha, and he'll know, oh, you're right. Oh, if I'm with her, it's not going to work. Why? Why should that be? I didn't do anything wrong. Whatever, they'll know that, and therefore, so it's not a right. Thank you to any of those things.